Okay, we're recording. All right, Scott, where's your camo? You're muted, Scott. I can't hear you. Nikki, do you have any camouflage?
I'll get it.
To try. Oh. How does that look, Mike?
That looks okay. I would drop it down just a hair.
Let me see if I
like
can.
away from you a little bit more, like tilted down. So, oh wow, there's 3 people in the waiting room. I'm gonna wait and let them in a few minutes.
That's movement right.
John, all right, I'm gonna go and start letting people in.
Okay. I'm gonna hide my video till we're ready, Mike.
Okay. All right. Hello, John Doss. You're muted. I can't hear you. Maybe I can unmute you. We'll see.
How's it going?
There you go. How are you? Thanks for coming.
Great. Yeah, thanks.
We're still working out the bugs here in these next 10 minutes, so bear with us. Hey, Glenn.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Glenn. How are you this morning?
Better than I deserve. Every day's a birthday. I wake up since that heart surgery. I'll tell you.
That's the right attitude. Let's see.
So, is it cold in Payson? How cold is it today? Are you freezing?
It is beautiful out there, and it's actually colder in my house than it is outside. You know, inside is colder than outside, I'm sure. But yeah, it should be in the early 60s. It was 65 like yesterday, 2 days ago,
Wow.
something like that. It was just snowing. We still have some snow on the ground.
Cool.
Here's my official badge. Look what I got for you. Okay.
Let's see. So, Glenn, are you going out tomorrow? Do you have a ham tag or?
I scouted. I've got my adopted brother from Idaho. He and his wife are on the road right now driving to Tucson.
Okay.
And his cousin. And so I was in 32 Tuesday. I made a hike. Betty dropped me off. I walked about 4 miles. She picked me up at the freeway. So I was scouting for that hunt. They're coming in for muzzleloader in Unit 32.
I'm listening.
And,
I'm putting up a video, but I'm listening.
You know, bone dry out there, but yeah, we'll back them up. We'll glass with them on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then I've got a Unit 32 muzzleloader, and so I'll do that. And then Bill Van Pelt and his son, I've got them for the rifle hunt in 32.
Okay.
But it is bone dry out there. It's almost as if this last storm we had down here just didn't count.
You just sucked it all up, huh?
It is sucked up. Yeah. And where the pigs had dug down, you know, trying to find the nut, the onions, it was still damp. But other than that, you literally could not hardly tell where they'd been because there's no tracks. It's just dry. Yeah. And then all the cattle growers, this place where we're hunting, these couple of pastures, they looked good, but he had cut his cow herd. Each pasture only had 10 head in it. And we're talking, 5-6 square miles. Wow. So he's doing the responsible thing.
Good. That's good to hear.
And then the water is there for mule deer, but not for javelina. The troughs are all full.
Yeah,
But,
you can't reach them, huh?
Yeah, all three of the dirt tanks in there were dry. So I think they're
Wow.
having to, if they're a pig, you're having to rely on agave
Okay.
and eating agaves
Well,
to
you know,
get your
that
moisture.
that should be, whether it be agave or prickly pear, you know, that could be one indication of a fine. If they're eating it on it heavily, that's pretty visible stuff.
Yeah, yep.
So I don't know. I'm going out tonight after work, and I'll stay out till Sunday evening.
What
But
unit
I'm
do you
going
have? Where are you
straight to
going?
that 30B. I'm going straight to the spot you told me to go. So
Oh, okay. All right. And do you have a place in 30B, right?
I have the place you give me, Glenn.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm going right there. So, how are you, Pat Headington?
I'm doing well, guys. How's everybody?
Glad to hear it. Thank you for. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and let folks in as they show up over this next 8 minutes or so. And while we're still working out any bugs, I think we're about in good shape. The boys are in the kitchen over there trying to work out different angles to their cooking demo.
Mike, how's our angles looking?
That looks good, except what I would do though is drop that down where you can see Harrison and he can talk to the camera.
Well, I figured we could change it, move it up,
There you go. Yeah, it looks great then.
and then after we start talking, depending on what we're doing, we can just move it.
Okay. All right. Sounds good to me, man.
Thank you, Mike.
I had 4 perfect little Mearns quail. They were all young. None of them were shot up, and they were all plucked perfectly. You know, they were just beautiful little packages. And I was excited about doing something with them whole, you know, and roasted. But I sacrificed them to their cooking demo, so now they're all cut up into little pieces.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's all right. There we got Jim Littlejohn coming in.
Scott, will you do me a favor and rename yourself to Scott AZ Wildlife
Yeah,
or some
actually,
variation of that, so I know the difference between you and Michael in the chat.
Yeah, I'll change mine too.
Hey, Pat, do you have any idea, did this last storm help with you guys as far as water lifting? Do you have some feedback now on those catchments out there in Region 4 for sheep? Can you opine on that maybe?
Glenn, the Colorado River corridor between here and Quartzsite did better than the east side of Region 4. Doug Beach was out there. The rain was spotty in Region 4 and even more so in Unit 39 and north. There were a couple of catchments that got some water, but like I say, it's pretty spotty. Kofa's got some water, but that's about it. We're still working on and planning some water hauling operations for spring. We know that's going to be a part of our part of our list of things to do.
Okay, yeah, I was hoping, watching you guys, that maybe this would give you that 6-week break, 8-week break, and those catchments would really catch it. Here in Southern Arizona, on average, we got between 1 inch and 1.5 inches, depending on where it is, but none of it ran off. The ground just sucked it up. And currently, the top 1 inch is already dry. You've got to go down a full inch to get to the moisture. So, well, that's disappointing news.
Yeah, the rain here seemed to be focused more on the western part of the county and the state, and unfortunately, it didn't get towards the center portion of the state, Region 4, at least from our side of things. What I could see, the rim country probably did better than we did.
Well, the higher peaks here in Southern Arizona got from between 24 inches and 30 inches of snow. That did happen. And then I know the peaks, I looked there, the peaks got 48 inches, 46 inches. So the higher elevations did get snow, but and then we had snow in Elgin at the farm, and it actually lasted a few days. Some of it, because of the wind, had drifts. We had little snow piles out there that were 1 foot deep at one point on the property. But our fingers are crossed. I'm going to touch on water when we get to our introduction with antelope. But
Yeah, I went out for a couple hours yesterday evening chasing some quail, and I was pleased to see that the tanks that have been dry all year here did have water in them up here in the Phoenix Valley.
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it was nice.
Were they like 10%, 20% from dry to?
Oh, man, I'd say even a little more, 20% of the lowest end.
Okay.
Glenn,
Yes.
this is Jim Littlejohn. Sunday, Zach and I were up at Falcon Valley Ranch, and he had it blocked off because of the rain to protect his roads and everything. But he said 2 of his big dirt tanks had over 10 inches of water in them.
Oh, good. So it did run off.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, everywhere I've been, it's been sucked in, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Tickled to when he said that. So that's good news.
Yeah, it is.
Well, folks, it's 11 o'clock. I'm going to give people 2 minutes, and then I'll just keep my time short with the intro. So 2 more minutes and we'll get rolling.
Let me, I'd give it a couple of minutes. Let me call Cara, so she ought to be on.
She's on, I think she already got on. At least she tried to anyway.
Okay, I don't see her on the screen.
Oh, there she is.
Right here.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me expand my, and do we have, there's Steve Clark. Cool. Got it. I just need to get my gallery view going. Thank you.
Is Aaron Kindle on yet, or should we send him a note?
Not yet. I'm confident he will be.
Okay.
His piece doesn't come till noon, so maybe. But I'll go ahead and send him just to.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that for the most part we weren't going to be like waiting for somebody who we were expecting to talk.
Nah.
There's Dwayne coming in, and then Commissioner. As I told a couple of you, Commissioner Brake is planning on joining us today, all. So from down at the ranch. Hey there, Ed.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You got a haircut. Is that a haircut or what? Go
Who,
ahead.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's just pulled back. See?
Oh, really pulled back.
That ponytail has been sold a couple of times for $3,000 to $5,000. And somebody always wants to cut it. They're offering me $3,000, you know, if we donate it to the Game and Fish.
I wouldn't give you $5 for that thing.
I did shave for this though, okay? Which in COVID days, does anybody here shave more than once a week? Guys? Oh, okay. Yeah, but you have a job. But here's the thing. My wife and I a week ago Friday, we went to Costco. So I not only had a shower, I shaved. And because I have not used aftershave cologne for 6 months, I put a cologne on to actually walk around Costco. That's how sad things are. All right.
But Ed, don't start commenting on how people look or everybody will turn off their camera.
Okay. No, I think he looks good.
Lou has been growing a pretty sporty beard. I like your beard, Lou. Looks good.
Glenn looks good. I just haven't seen him for a while, and he's just looked all cleaned up and ready to go.
All right, guys, it's 11:03, and this is a tight schedule, so I'm going to try to keep everybody on track best I can. I do expect to fall off of it, but I think we ought to kick things off, and as folks show up, you know, they'll figure it out. The first thing I'm going to ask everybody to do, if you can, is go to the top right-hand corner of your screen where it says View. And you might have to toggle your mouse over it to get it to come up. And if you click on that, you have 3 options there: speaker view, gallery view, and well, maybe full screen because I'm not on full screen, but you should have speaker view and gallery view. I'd ask you to put it on speaker view. If anybody has trouble with that, please don't be bashful and speak up. Everybody think they're good? All right. All right. Well, for those folks I haven't personally met yet, and I think I know most all of you, but my name is Michael Cravens, and I work as the advocacy and conservation coordinator for the Arizona Wildlife Federation, and it was me to bring this all together today. I wish it's a beautiful day outside, and I wish to hell we could have done this in person, because I think we're all ready for a little bit of that. But you know, we're not there yet. We're on our way. There's light at the end of the tunnel, so if we hang in there a little bit longer, I think we're going to be in good shape. So next year, I think we can count on it. But for this year, this is how we got to do it. Normally, you know, this would be more focused at, you know, meeting with legislators, getting to know them, and then having that back and forth and building those relationships that is so important in this kind of work. But in this case, I think we're going to try to use it as an opportunity to communicate with each other. I mean, we all are off in our own little corners doing our important work, but the truth is we're all working for the same thing. So I think it's important that we all communicate with each other. We all know about each other, know about the work that we do, and you know, have those relationships. And you know, in a climate where things are so divisive these days, and everybody's in little bubbles, you know, it's vital to realize that we are all in this same thing together. We're all working for wildlife and habitat. So with that, we will kick this thing off and get rolling. The first part of this program is going to be hearing from our friends and affiliates about who they are and the work that they do. So we're going to get this going right now with Steve Clark and the Arizona Elk Society. Steve, are you ready?
All right, can you hear me now?
We can. And if you don't mind me interrupting, one more thing before you get going, Steve. Nikki is going to be working behind the scenes. I would ask everyone to try to mute yourself. And so only the speaker is the one being heard. And, you know, if you don't, Nikki will give you a reminder or perhaps mute you on her own. So, all right.
So, yeah, good morning, guys. Yeah, and gals. I'm Steve Clark with the Executive Director of the Arizona Elk Society. A little bit about the Arizona Elk Society, because I think that's what we're supposed to be doing today, is talking about our group, right?
Correct.
We were established in 2001 to bring resources to Arizona's wildlife, especially focusing on elk and elk range in Arizona. The Arizona Elk Society partners with a whole bunch of other groups, the state, the federal groups, the Forest Service, Arizona Game and Fish, private sector organizations. We represent 1,250 members and thousands of supporters that have supported us over the years. We've been an active partner in contributing 20 years of hundreds of thousands of dollars for wildlife here in Arizona, and also hundreds of thousands of hours in all the projects that we've done over the years. We focus on wildlife habitat restoration, which includes the juniper and forest thinning. We have a whole team of certified sawyers for the Forest Service that go out and thin the forest and thin the junipers by hand. A lot of that is grassland restoration. And then we do, probably our biggest claim to fame is our riparian restoration, our headwater restoration for different watersheds around on the Mogollon Rim is where we're focusing now. A lot of youth camps teaching kids about outdoor skills and conservation. We haul water for wildlife all across Region 2 for Arizona Game and Fish and the Forest Service and a lot of the cattle ranchers up there. Last year we hauled over 800,000 gallons of water, and this is pretty much all done with volunteers. We have a whole cadre of trailers and trucks. And then our last big program is our Heroes Rising, which is a program dedicated to wounded veterans of Arizona, where we take them on hunts and fishing experiences and outdoor experiences, including equine therapy and things like that, all paid for by the Arizona Elk Society and the money we raise. We've had over 400 different wounded veterans take part in our program to date, and it's a huge benefit to the state of Arizona for our veterans to get out and use our outdoors. And that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve, and kudos to you on having the most professional backdrop there. I appreciate it. And thank you for the
every day.
I know you guys do a lot. All right, so I'm going to skip down one because our Ducks Unlimited fella just texted me. He's going to be a little bit late. So Jim Littlejohn, can I call on you? Can you step up?
You bet, Michael. I'm with the Southern Arizona Quail Forever chapter, and we're relatively new. We were just founded over 10 years ago, and pre-COVID, we used to have meetings down in Sonoyta or in Green Valley. Our membership is right around 250 men and women. Unique within that is a little over 30% of our members are snowbirds. And the Quail Forever is obviously part of Pheasants Forever. And except for the $35 yearly national dues, 90% of our money is used for habitat here in Southern Arizona. And then the other 10% is used for our Youth Family Day that unfortunately we had to cancel this year, that we used to get used to just be youth, and now we're doing it with family members so they can get the experience of shooting pen-raised quail over pointing bird dogs. Huge success. Last year, we had over 35 participants, and we had that many signed up for this year until we had to cancel. Over the last 4 years, we have put in over $100,000 in habitat in Southern Arizona. The bulk of that is going to the Grasslands project down at the Coronado Monument, working with the Forest Service. The second largest project we've worked on is down at the Buenos Aires in trying to get the masked bob white quail back in a natural production. And the third area we've worked with is private ranchers. most of the habitat work that we've done is one rock dams, planting shrubs and grasses, and then also making living brush piles. The bulk of the work is we contract the labor out. We've put in over 1,000 rock dams down by the border at the Coronado Monument, and we've put in over 100,000 hours of our volunteer in labor hours. One of the questions you asked, Michael, was about advocacy and everything. And unfortunately, Quail Forever doesn't allow chapters to do that. So that's where you come in. That's where that, you know, that's where you can help us all. As far as access, we really had a bad experience 3 years ago when they closed off Meadow Valley and everything. And we called the meeting with the Forest Service and got Game and Fish involved. And we've been working with them on a continuing basis. And that should be completed next year. We've all been down this road before, and NEPA is the biggest deterrent. But all the plans are laid, and that road should be put in for next season. And really our main practice is obviously habitat improvement, and with this drought, we're all having the same problems, but we're helping get some water on the ground and to build back more habitat. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jim. So I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a quick heads up. If you're not familiar with the Zoom format, there is a button down at the bottom of your screen called chat. And in that chat, you'll notice numbers popping up, 1, 2, 3. It's almost like a text message. And if you click on that, you can go over and see if you have a question. I mean, feel free to raise your hand too. But if you have a question, you're welcome to type it in there. Nikki is going to be putting in all of the different org websites as they speak. So if you're interested, you can click in on there. And I'll go ahead and add one thing to what Jim was talking about. Granted, most of you guys are in habitat work, and that is the probably most important work. The advocacy element of conservation is not fun. Nobody likes to do it. It's dirty. You're always going to fall on one side or the other, and somebody's going to not appreciate it. But one thing we pride ourselves at Arizona Wildlife Federation is being that person for you guys. Keeping an eye on that legislature and letting you know of bad bills that are coming up to keep you abreast of it. So that is one thing we offer. This is not a ploy for affiliates, but most of you guys here are, and that's we take pride in offering that service to you. So moving on with that, next up we got Pat Headington of the Yuma Valley Rod and Gun Club. You ready, Pat?
Yeah, Mike. Good morning, all. My name's Pat Headington. I'm the president of the Yuma Valley Rod and Gun Club, Southwest Wildlife Foundation. In my second year as presidency, of course, was able to get it started all off with COVID. So some of the members are blaming me for all of that, but hopefully that blows over here a little bit as we move on. So the club was originally formed in 1936. It's one of Arizona's oldest sporting group organizations. We have both hunters and anglers involved with the organization. It's been a long-standing tradition for the Yuma area, the conservation and sportsmanship that goes in with the club, along with the advocacy and the involvement with some of the legislation. We have a long tradition of folks in the organization that have actually served on the Arizona Game and Fish Commission. So some of the stuff that we're involved with, We work with the Arizona Game and Fish Department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife on many different projects. Behind me is one of them, our most recent waterhole project, which was south of Gila Bend. This was a waterhole project we helped Game and Fish and U.S. Fish and Wildlife put in for Sonoran pronghorn. Might be able to see the little pronghorn etched on the side of the drinker there. We just wrapped this one up last weekend. There were about 30 volunteers down there putting that one together. We're also involved with water hauling here in the Region 4 area. We have volunteers that are constantly on the ground checking waters and coordinating those projects and water hauling events with the Region 4 folks. Some of the other things that we're involved with as far as community-based activities include our youth activities. We have a small game camp that we put together every year. We have a youth dove hunt. We have our youth fishing clinic that'll be coming up here in another month or so. In 2018, we had over, or 2019, I guess, we had over 860 young people attend our youth fishing clinic out at Mitri Lake. It was quite the event. We also are involved with putting events together for wounded warriors in our area during our dove hunting season. So got a lot of different things going on across in the area just to keep us moving along. That's kind of it in a nutshell for us, Michael. So I'll hand her back to you, my friend.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate that. Man, and I know you guys are a powerhouse down there, and you do a lot of large in-person events. I know with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, we came down there and met up with you guys, but I look forward to getting back to doing that as well. All right, so next up, we've got the Arizona Antelope Federation and our foundation, I apologize. And I got a quick video to share with that. Nikki is going to share that link in the chat. Rarely have I, Zoom, as much as I use it, I still feel like a novice. Rarely do I share videos, and it works very well, but I'm going to go for it. It's a 2-minute video.
Michael, can we wait on the video and have that after I've commented, please?
Yeah, no problem. All right, take it away then, Glenn.
Hi guys, gals, good morning. Glenn Dickens here. Today I'm wearing my antelope hat. I'm vice president of the Arizona Antelope Foundation. I had a 20-year career with the Game and Fish Department, 77 to 97. We have 300 members, and most recently, here the last several years, there's been a real trend towards life membership, and we now have 91 life members. We actually gained 3 last month. We have a COVID protocol we have put in place. We canceled all of last year's projects with the exception of one. We are going to attempt to have a full project schedule, and that would include April and September in Unit 18A. We're removing up to 36 miles of sheep fence. However, we're not allowing the public just to register online as volunteers. They are by invitation only. We're going back to a list. We're harvesting off a list of 50 regulars, and then we hold the limit to 40, the first 40, so we still have room for our cooks and for Game and Fish if they're able to participate. In June, we'll be in Big Lake, the Big Lake Complex. In August, we'll be working south of I-40. All of these are modifying fences to pronghorn standard, which is 16 to 20 inches smooth bottom strand. Most recently, our online raffles, we've been surviving on those. We have canceled this year's banquet, last year's banquet, and we had predicted that our online raffles last calendar year would bring in 50,000. We actually brought in 80,000. That gives us the money then to do the $40,000 that we have given for water. We've partnered with Steve Clark and the Arizona Elk Society to purchase 3 1,000-gallon trailers for Pine Top to replace 3 500-gallon. We've donated $20,000 directly to the Arizona Elk Society for their water hauling efforts in Region 2. At our next Monday meeting, we will very likely donate another $10,000 to the Arizona Game and Fish Department water hauling. The last thing I touch on is our clinic. We went to online format last year, And the format, we professionally, for $5,000, we taped. What you're going to see here is the first 2 minutes introducing ourselves. Previously, we've had usually about 45 participants. We online had over 90 registrants. We had 65 people attend, and it was wildly successful and complimented, and we have that customer satisfaction data to show that. So we're going to use the same format this year. We're having it for the same date. We're going to rely again on our online raffle sales. And with that, and Cara Jensen is on. She's the Antelope Foundation's communications director and board member. And she's the star of the next couple of minutes that you'll see. But go for it. Thank you.
All right, guys, here we go. If this does not come well through, there is a link in the chat. You can watch it on your own. But I'm going to do my best here. Everybody see my screen? Somebody's going to have to. No, you don't. All right.
Not yet, Michael.
All right. I got this. Hang in there. All right. How about now?
Yep.
Got it.
Okie doke here. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Cara Jensen. I've been a member of the Arizona Antelope Foundation since 2007. Populations in Arizona. We do that through habitat improvements, the translocation of antelope to their historic range, and helping comment on activities that affect conserve and their habitat. Through various grants, fundraising activities, and thousands of hours of volunteer boots on the ground work, the foundation has opened up over 190,000 acres in southeastern Arizona for antelope to roam. We've also increased the number of herds across the state. What many people don't know is antelope don't jump fences, but they crawl under. So our volunteers and members have removed miles and miles of bottom barbed wire fence and replaced it with snow wire at a height the animal can easily slip under. We have the support of the Arizona Game and Fish Department, and all of our projects have the approval and coordination of the department and other land agencies such as the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service. When you become a member, you'll receive our award-winning quarterly magazine and notification of upcoming events, meetings, and online raffles. You can see our membership levels on our website at acantelope.org. We also have some awesome branded merchandise that you can purchase on the website. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for other news, photos, and the raffles, and watch the adventures of our mascot, Andy. The Arizona Antelope Foundation appreciates your support.
All right. How'd that come through?
I think Kara's going to probably get a bunch of requests to help put together a video for every other sporting group.
I was just going to say, we need one of those. Maybe we can get Kara to do it for us. No, that was excellent. Very, very nice video.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for that. Next up, we're going to have Nate Reese of Trout Unlimited talk to us about the work they do. We work really closely with Trout Unlimited. Yeah, there you go. With that, Nate, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Hey, everyone. I'm Nathan Reese with Trout Unlimited. I'm the national staffer located here in Arizona. Trout Unlimited, as maybe most of you know, is a national organization with roughly 300,000 members. Here in Arizona, we have about 3,000 members. And our members are mostly concerned about access to public lands, completing conservation projects that affect or benefit cold water streams, and just general involvement with policy related around cold, clean water. And so this year, of course, with COVID, we've had some growing pains as well, figuring out how to navigate legislation virtually, how to switch everything over, all our committees to be virtual. But one thing we've really prided ourselves on is continuing to still have a presence on the federal and state level with legislatures and pushing good conservation legislation forward. And pushing back on bad land grabbing bills like we typically see come through. So for TU here in Arizona, we have a few committees I want to touch on today. One being the Conservation Committee that focuses primarily on, our rock rolling projects, sign projects, working with the Forest Service on the NEPA process, whether it's FORFRI, the Forest Restoration Initiative, Black River EA, but TU always seems to have a seat at the table when it comes to forest restoration plans, when it makes sense in cold, clean water streams or watersheds, typically up north. Another committee is our Public Policy Committee. Tom Osterday, who I think is on the call, he formed this committee a couple years ago. And sorry about that. It's just probably like everyone else had dogs in the background. But this Public Policy Committee focuses on state and federal legislation and is really a segue to getting our grassroots membership engaged. And so we focus on, kind of like I alluded to earlier, public lands bills, water conservation bills, forest tax credits for thinning biomass, everything along those lines. And then lastly, a big staple of Trout Unlimited in Arizona is our Trout in the Classroom program. This program services 34 schools, and each year we're increasing that number in the Phoenix, or in actually the whole state of Arizona. What we do is we bring a fish tank into a classroom with a whole curriculum around raising trout from eggs to juvenile fish. And so that's something that our members are really passionate about. It's bringing nature into the classroom when it seems that our youth, needs that now more than ever. So, if anyone, if you're not already involved with Trout Unlimited, feel free to reach out to me. I'll post my name, email, and contact information in the chat box here.
Thank you, Nate. All right, next up, we've got Justin Nelson with Arizona Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And Justin, it's all yours.
Okay, great. My name is Justin Nelson. Like Michael said, I'm the Arizona State Chair for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is a national-based nonprofit. We operate here, obviously, with a focus in Arizona, but nationally, we have 48 individual state chapters and then 3 Canadian chapters as well. We also have subsets of those chapters at the collegiate level, with a handful of college level memberships and chapters that run their own events, run their own fundraising and habitat projects. Here in Arizona, we have a chapter in Northern Arizona University, and working on getting some other chapters online at ASU and U of A. So, we're growing, in terms of Arizona's advocacy and stuff like that. We're still considered probably maybe the new kids on the block. Our membership's been growing very quickly, with the exception of last year, which was kind of a hit to everybody, obviously. Our membership prior to that had been doubling every year for the past 3 or 4 years prior. So as of right now, we're a little over 50,000 members nationwide, and just under 1,000 members here in the state. And it was higher, but due to COVID, obviously, we weren't able to engage as many members as we normally do. But some of the things we try to work on are obviously habitat improvement, public land and water access, and then a big focus here in Arizona is legislative issues, focusing in on good and bad bills and their language and how it applies to sportsmen and women and all public land users. Some of our demographics for membership are pretty diverse, and we're very proud of that fact. About 70% of our members are under the age of 45, with the majority of that 70% under the age of 40. And then, on the political spectrum as well, we are a 501c3, so we're limited on what we can do, what we can engage on, but we're not afraid to get, our hands dirty in legislative type work. So our latest demographic survey had, I think it was 23% identified as Republican, 20% as Democrat, and the balance remaining as independent or unaffiliated. So very diverse group of membership, which we we really cherish, and we welcome that aspect. I think that gives us a voice to lend not only to the right side of the aisle, but left side of the aisle when issues pop up, and we're proud of that fact. Some habitat projects that we have coming up here at the end of the month, we're going to be helping the Coronado National Forest with some leopard frog pond installations down by the border. That'll benefit mainly, obviously, the target species is the leopard frog, but will benefit all of the wildlife in the area. We are working on welding up some elk jump fences for a rancher up on the rim, and get those installed sometime in March. We're working with Tonto National Forest on a handful of projects as well, building and maintaining monofilament bins along the Saguaro Lake and Salt River to help direct some of that trash and make sure it's not along the shoreline. Also be working with Tonto National Forest along the Salt River to develop a new campground near the water user site. So that should become online this spring. So it's kind of some of our main focuses. And we don't hold traditional meetings with our membership. Our board, a group of 11 members, key members here in the state, meet monthly to determine the kind of issues we're going to weigh in on and help plan events. But we hold what we call pint nights. We try to have at least one a month. Pre-COVID, it was in person. We jump around from brewery to brewery or bar to bar every month around the state, engage with membership that way, tell them what we're working on, swap hunting stories, that kind of thing. The past year, we've held them virtually with a new topic every month. We had just had one last night on, Q&A processes of the draw, since the elk and antelope draw is open right now. So, and then we try to have a guest speaker each month, given some sort of topic to go over and, break up the monotony of sitting at home. But, biting at the bit to get those back in person and drinking beer with some fellow public land users is the goal. So that's BHA in a nutshell.
Great job, Justin. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we've got John Doss of the Arizona Flycasters Club. John, are you ready?
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be sitting at the table with you guys and tell you a little bit about what Arizona Flycasters is about and AZ Fish Book. AZ Flycasters was founded back in 1962. We're coming up on our 60-year reunion next year. So we're pretty excited about what we've been able to do during the COVID crisis. When we started the year, we were like at 130 members, and the club was kind of heading south from a membership perspective. And fortunately, we started in April doing Zoom meetings, and we did that weekly for the next 6 months. And our membership has grown from that to 330 members. We got a little younger, more women involved, so it's pretty exciting that we're able to do that. We have been focused as a fishing club, so our conservation contribution has not been what I wanted it to be. I'm the president of Arizona Flycasters, and also on the board of Fly Fishers International as a casting chair. For those of you that have seen me cast, you're probably saying, "How could that be?" But they tell me that's a good thing. They don't want to get leaning too far towards the technical aspects as much as teaching people to fish and get outdoors. We were able to accomplish a couple of fundraisers this year, working with Trout Unlimited and Alan Davis. We raised some money through a grant with FFI for $3,000 to help the RBRC restoration up on the rim. We also were able to raise around $2,000 for the hatchery project for the Gila trout up on the rim. So we were able to stay pretty active during this whole time. I'm kind of proud of the club for staying active and not going to the basement and waiting this out. So we've been pretty active. Another organization I am responsible for is AZ Fish Book, and it's more of a social network group, and it's grown from up to, we're at about 925 members now, and it's just the opposite of Arizona Flycasters. Arizona Flycasters is primarily a fishing club, where AZ Fish Book is more about community and conservation, and so that's where we're going to focus our energy going forward. And one thing we have done with Arizona Flycasters, which I'm kind of excited about, is we finally got a member on the board that has some conservation experience. John Jordan is going to join us, and he's been with Arizona Sportsmen for Wildlife Conservation for some time. And our representative that was on that board, which wasn't as active, he retired and decided to leave the board. So John graciously stepped forward and said he would do it, which makes me real excited. Now we've got probably one of the John Jordan to me is the Michael Jordan of conservation. He knows his stuff, so we're looking forward to see how that works out. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Yeah, I'll add to that. You say you don't do as much in conservation as you'd like, but it sounds like you do plenty. And one of the most beautiful things about this system of wildlife conservation we have in our country is just by, even if it's just selfishly participating, you are contributing to this. And the more people that you bring into this circle and introduce to the sporting lifestyle, the more you are contributing to conservation. So every little bit matters. With that, I'm going to jump over to Jerry Thurston. And Jerry, I want to give you a personal thank you. I picked up some decoys from Jerry's house the other day. He wasn't home, but obviously you saw that I got those. Thanks for those. And please take it away.
Okay, I'm Jerry Thorson. I'm the treasurer of the Arizona Predator Callers, and the club has been around a long time, similar to Yuma Valley Rod and Gun Club Predator Callers. I have a letter from the IRS from 1944 that said we were a nonprofit organization, so it's a long-time organization, originally incorporated as the Mesa Varmint Callers. We were the Mesa Club of Varmint Callers. And in a typical year, a non-COVID year, we have 10 monthly meetings starting in August, and we'll cover the basics of predator calling in August, September, and then in October and November, we would have novice hunts where we send out new members, novices with experienced predator callers and go out and try to harvest some. And in December, we'll cover more predator calling. In January, we participate in the multi-club hunt. It's typically the third or fourth Saturday of January. And then the different predator calling clubs from Tucson, Phoenix, and other areas will meet for a check-in and determine who the winner is. The prize is you get to host the meeting the next year and pay for the food. So it's kind of a fun event. But, and after, also in January, Kara Jensen runs our juniors Javelina camp in Unit 37B, which is really successful and a lot of fun. So we're grateful for having Kara to be able to do that. And in February and March, it's more predator calling. We'll go on to, we have a Save a Fawn hunt, typically some weekend in March, some Saturday in March, where we will have a hunt up near Heber, but anywhere up on the rim. And then we'll meet at the Red Onion to discuss our successes for the day. And in April, we try to have a ranch cleanup at Griffin Ranch north of Globe. And in May, an awards banquet. And, you know, it's a fun club. I've been a member since 1989, a long time, but it helps me a lot just to learn about different aspects of wildlife conservation. So I'm glad I joined. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Jerry. That's appreciated. I'm going to go off script here for just a second and put Alan Davis on the spot. Nate gave us a great talk regarding TU and the work they do, but if Alan would like to jump in and talk about what their local chapter, he's certainly welcome to. Alan, are you interested?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Sorry
it.
for putting you on the spot there too.
It's a pleasure to be able to join you this morning, and it's really I find this a convoluted way to try and teach somebody to fly cast today, but nevertheless, it's great to be here. And I see that the main theme of today has been about conservation, and of course, and I know that Nate covered a lot of that. We're thrilled to be able to be engaged in this, and as many of you know, one of the things that we've been successful with has been the start of a restoration project in conjunction with the Grand Canyon Council of Scouts BSA on their property at R-Bar-C. John Doss mentioned that. We've run a fish camp. We did our charter program last summer. We're doing a 3 one-week fish camps this summer, also at R-Bar-C, and we're looking for volunteers. And we need everybody from people that are good fly casters and as well as spin casters, and people that just are good at herding cats or taking pictures. And so we're looking for all sorts of volunteers on that. In conjunction with that, we're also doing a project there on the property that includes restoration of the pond that's there, rebuilding a 75-year-old pipeline that services the pond from a spring across from Christopher Creek, and we're restoring Christopher Creek and look to make that a better fishery. Ultimately, the goal there is to be stocking Christopher Creek with Gila trout. It currently gets triploid rainbows, but we look to put in some Gilas there. So it should be a great fishery, and we probably will be able to implement that within the next year and a half is our goal.
All right, Alan, is that all you got for us?
Well, that. I mean, I can go on for the rest of the evening, but the rest of the day. But I don't. I wanted to just cut it close.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate it. And that was very graceful considering I put you on the spot. So thank you very much for that. On a personal note, you and I need to get back to talking about that Amazon fly fishing trip. I can't shake that idea. That would just be such a fun trip. So we should talk about that.
I'm sorry, right. the what again?
Amazon basin fly fishing.
I've got a trip tentatively booked in January of 2021.
Yeah, we should talk about it.
All right.
Thank you for that, Alan. And finally, and I'll tell you what, we got two more. Ducks Unlimited is, well, you know, it's a Thursday and people work. So if he jumps in, I'm still going to give him his opportunity. But finally, we got AJ Morowski from Valley of the Sun Quail Forever. AJ, are you ready? I guess we should have AJ.
Yep, probably help if I unmute, right?
Thank you, sir.
All right, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm AJ Morowski. I'm the website and communications director of the Valley of the Sun Quail Forever chapter based out of Phoenix. Our chapter has members from north of Flagstaff down towards Camp Verde. We do have a working relationship with the Southern Quail Forever chapter as well. Quail Forever is known as a habitat organization. It's a grassroots, volunteer, membership-based organization consisting of hunters, farmers, ranchers, landowners, conservation enthusiasts, and wildlife officials. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're also a member of the Hunting and Angling Heritage Work Group with the Arizona Game and Fish Department. One of the key things about us is membership dues go to national, but all local fundraising stays here local for us to use as we choose. So it's a little different than a lot of the groups out there. When it comes to developing wildlife habitat, one of the biggest limitations for landowners is the knowledge of what programs and resources are available for their properties. Quail Forever has a farm bill biologist program where they offer their expert knowledge of federal, state, and local habitat programs to enlist land managers with designing, developing, and funding habitat improvements on their properties. Currently, our chapter is building a relationship with a new rancher a little bit north of Phoenix that would provide opportunities for us to work on their land to help them out with brush piles and waterworks and that kind of thing. And then we would be able to have a relationship to camp and quail hunt and that kind of thing up there. So it'd be a good win-win. Also, our biologists provide opportunities to go on events such as like bird counting projects. We go by, we're Valley of the Sun Quail Forever, so we go by VOTS QF. We've had a working relationship with the Robbins Butte Wildlife Area in Buckeye since 2016. We've written for and received grant monies to plant fields of grain, sorghum, grasses, and pollinators down there. These large fields, along with the buffer strips and riparian areas, have helped improve the overall health of the whole area. We also completed our next Robbins Butte volunteer project down there, where we installed a mile of piping and 10 industrial float type dog watering bowls that we hooked up, that will be hooked up to a newly drilled well. This will allow wildlife access to water where it was never available before. Also, when you're hunting with dogs out there, there'll be 10 water bowls with water out there for them to get to as well. This was the first portion of the project. We plan on doing another 5 miles over the next couple of years down there. Our regular projects, if you will, we always have a quail opening day season camping event where we camp and hunt together. Newbies and kids are always welcome at all of our events, no matter what we're doing. We have silver shooter get-togethers at Ben Avery. We also have an annual banquet when COVID doesn't stop it. This particular weekend, we're having an end of quail season cast and blast event at Roosevelt Lake. So people are heading out there actually even this afternoon. Going to hunt quail for the end of season, which ends on Sunday, and then also be fishing out on Roosevelt Lake. So that'll be a pretty cool event. Our president, Pat Moore, is a fire supervisor for Tonto National Forest. So we're in some negotiations right now to work on a few different projects, water and land projects on the Tonto National Forest. We can't really say where yet because it's all national. You got to keep all that stuff under wraps until it's available. And we also help out with the different hog groups with shooting shotguns and learning about hunting dogs and different things like that. So if you want some more information about us, our website is simply votsqf.com, VOTSQF.com. And if you fill out any contact forms on there, I'll be the one receiving them. And then we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as simply if you just search for VOTSQF out there. So thank you for the time.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ, and thank you for all the work that you do. In case you missed AJ's website, remember Nikki is putting those websites into the chat if you want to grab them from there. Okay, with that, like I said, we are missing one of our speakers, and but I know he's a friend and he's working with Ducks Unlimited. So when he shows up later, we'll probably give him a slot if we can. But next up, we have Ed Sanchez, and forgive me, Ed Sanchez, the legislative liaison for Arizona Game and Fish. And he's going to give us an update on what's going on over there. Thank you, Ed, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And thank you for inviting me today to the Camo at the Capitol. I'm very excited to be here today to provide you a very quick. I wrote a script because, as some of you may know, I can go on forever. So I saw my time slotted. So I want to make sure I try to keep that as close as possible. So thank you again. It's been a fairly interesting session so far. Specifically, we're in 25 days, over 1,600 bills introduced, 5 bills passed. But 1,600 is usually it's around 1,200, maybe close to 1,300 sometimes. But this was the same number as last year. So you can imagine a lot of these bills are repeat bills from last year because of the shortened budget. So we're seeing a lot of these things, but also the COVID has obviously transformed this whole session into a virtual challenge, right? How do we make contact? And I know Scott Garland will probably talk about this, about engagement, about advocacy, but very much a challenge that I wish is only going to be for this year going forward. We're doing fine from a department's perspective of reaching out to those key members that we need to talk to, but it's definitely a challenge throughout the whole process, whether it's talking one by one to a member, testifying at a committee, which I may get into a little bit of detail, hopefully Scott does, regarding the traditional way of signing in, but then you have to send an email in requesting to actually specifically testify. A lot of different things going on in this session. So we're just going with the flow and embracing what we have to deal with. So I find it very exciting, but I hope it's one and done for next year. Specifically, I want to go right to the budget. As you know, the governor has a $12.7 billion budget. And the thing that we look at for the department is whether our request for our budget is in the governor's budget. And as of right now, it all is in there, the department budget, along with our appropriation request for $2.6 million for our hatchery infrastructure. So that's very good news for us. And another point to make is that at the Senate side, they have it's not a budget request, it's more like a budget platform, the things that they're focused on with their budget. Our hatchery infrastructure request for $2.6 million is also in that platform. So that's very positive news for us. This should be on the top of our list, but our new commissioner was just confirmed on Tuesday, Clay Hernandez, a Democrat from Tucson, has been involved in sportsmen's activities for most of his life, very involved. We're very happy to have him. I would tell you, just from my limited experience with him through this confirmation process, I'm very impressed. I'm looking forward to working with him, and I wouldn't hesitate anybody to reach out to him. He seems to be very accessible and willing to listen as a new commissioner. So kudos for Clay. Legislation, I want to go through just a few bills. And of course, I'm available along with David Fernandez, my cohort in crime at the legislature. You can always reach out if you have questions specifically about bills. We can provide you some details on them, whatever you think you need. But right off the bat, there's a commission-supported bill. Just one we have this year is the HB 2246. That's the Game and Fish Private Lands, actually the trespassing bill. And what it does, just very briefly, it clarifies some language because right now there really isn't any explicit violation that exists for persons who attempt to take or drive wildlife from private property. And so we wanted just to clean that up a little bit. And so it reflects many of the other statutes regarding when the commission may engage on a specific issue. So that just passed. It passed out of the House on the 25th, I believe, unanimously, 11-0. And it's expected to go third read this afternoon in the House. So we expect that to go pass unanimously like it did last year. So we're not seeing any problems with that this year. So as long as we don't have a shortened legislative session, we're probably going to see this thing just fly through. Another bill that's again a repeat from last year, the salvage bill, again expands and provides flexibility for people to harvest a a big game animal that was hit by another vehicle. That's sponsored by Representative Griffin. That same thing. It actually has already passed the House unanimously. I think it was 59-0. So again, another bill that's flying through the House, and we expect the same at the Senate. The one bill I wanted to really talk about is Senate Bill 1360. And the title is Veterans /Hunting/Fishing/Licenses. It's sponsored by a freshman legislator, Wendy Rogers from District 6, that's northeastern Arizona, Flagstaff, Payson, a little bit of the Verde Valley area. It was introduced about a week ago, actually last Wednesday afternoon, the 27th. And it was also, it was introduced and had no knowledge of the bill. So we weren't approached prior to the introduction of this bill. So this was brand new for us. So it does two important things. It requests a reduction in the hunt and fish licenses and also the combo licenses for veterans. And this would include both non-resident, it would also include resident and non-resident veterans. So the price reduction would be from, let's say the hunt fish license would be $37. Now it's reduced to $2. And then also the combo license from $57 to $5. So a significant reduction for veterans. And then the other piece is regarding the complimentary license for veterans and the transfer of tags that allows that complimentary license, that veteran, to transfer that tag to another person so they can hunt on their behalf. So again, those are issues, whether you agree or disagree with this issue, were those changes. My focus and concern right now is that there's already a process in place. As you know, the simplification process was reauthorized just a couple of years ago in 2019, because it was, we talked, it was changed in 2014 and then allowed us a few years to try it out. And it did with great results. And so they reauthorized it. So it provided a process for the commission to go and look at these decisions, look at these issues and make changes according to the best interest of sportsmen. And also regarding maintaining revenue and a business kind of approach to how we run the department. So this is something that's we've met with the sponsor. She has agreed to continue the conversation. We're getting a fiscal note for it. We expect to see it early next week, like Monday. At that time, we'll meet with the sponsor again to talk about the impacts of this legislation. Hopefully, we can, our first approach is to really allow the commission to take on these issues. So we'd like the bill to be dropped. If not, then we'll continue to have a conversation of what we do with this legislation. So I'm not at this point in time advocating that you go out and do that. That's your call. But our first step is to work with the sponsor, and at that time we'll know early next week what our next steps are going to be. And those next step will be obviously going to the other members of the Natural Resource Committee on the Senate side, talking to the chairman, and then talking to other members about our very big concern about this legislation. So I would really hope that everyone here would look at that closely and consider, your advocacy position on this going forward. So this is something that's going to pop up. So just to let you know, the last Senate Natural Resource Committee was yesterday. They were hoping to do it next Wednesday, but we got the Senate to agree to extend it another week, which is the 17th. So that's our really timeline to try to get a resolution out of this issue. So yeah, it's something that needs proper attention for the department, for the commission, and for advocates for the department. So something I really want people to think about. And if you need any backup, please follow up with us. coordinate with Michael or with Scott with this. Another piece is a legislative day. As you know, and as we do Camo the Capitol, it's virtual. And so we've decided to do our Department Legislative Day virtual. It was scheduled for February 8th. We've moved that because we're not going to be there. We moved it to March 23rd. Still in the works. We have our team working on it hard. It's going to be all virtual in the sense that we're going to have pre-recorded cameos from the director, from at least one commissioner, and we've identified 2 members. And I can tell you it's going to be Representative Cobb and Senator Contreras, both on the Arizona Legislators for Wildlife Caucus. They're going to have a cameo talking about their experience. You know, it's about a 1 minute and a half cameos. And then we're going to have an opportunity to, we're creating an interactive map, which will have spots all over those maps. And you can click on those maps and have a virtual experience of what we're doing in that certain area. So we're trying to impact those members who have interest in, oh, wow, here's my district. What does this mean? You plug it in, and maybe a habitat activity that we're doing there on the ground there, or it could be a hatchery story, something like that. So that's in the working. We're still working on that stuff, but we still have time to develop it and make sure it's in working order. So, and also we know for sure that other people will be able to watch this. We're not quite sure the universe right now. Right now, it's focused on members and staff. We're looking at how we can expand to other interested groups like yourself who may want to watch this on the 23rd. So we're working on that. It's really more than anything else a technical issue we're trying to work out. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then finally, really quick on the federal side, first 100 days is going to be very interesting. I really want to specifically point out right now, we call actions of review. I call them midnight rules based upon the Congressional Review Act. There's major reviews now that the Biden administration is trying to reverse from the Trump administration. And they're starting basically from August 21st of 2020. And they have, whatever that day is, the start of the federal legislative session, January something, they have 75 days to reverse these major rules. And I would tell you that there's a couple issues I think, I think there's like 15 or 20 they focused on, but there's a couple that has to do with endangered species, wildlife and plants of critical habitat, also migratory birds rule. I think they're going to be focused on these next few weeks to try to get those reversed. And with that, I would also tell you that in our department, we're looking at that very specifically. If you don't know, Jim DeVos, who was our AD for Wildlife Division, retired. He's kind of back for a little while, for a few months, but he's retired. And Clay Crowder is our new Wildlife Division Assistant Director. So if many of you probably already know Clay, if you don't, reach out to him and congratulate him and start talking about some of the exciting things he has planned as the new AD. And then finally, our focus from a government affairs position is that we're going to reconnect with the Arizona delegation. A lot of changes at the delegation level, some changes at the delegation level, specific focus on Senator Sinema, Senator Kelly, on reconnecting and prioritizing what our issues are going to be. Good for Arizona. Nick Matea, who used to be a staffer, natural resources for Senator McCain, and then Senator Flake, and then he moved on to natural energy and natural resources. He's now back in staff with Senator Kelly. Great news for Arizona. So we're going to do that along with specific contacts in the administration. We're going to work on that. So, and one more thing, Kelly is actually now on the natural resource and energy, also energy and public works. I'm sure Scott's probably going to say all this, but that's all good news for Arizona because we always had someone sitting on at least one of those committees. So that's all very good news. With that, Michael, that's my report.
Thank you so much, Ed. That was extremely informative and important information, so I appreciate that update. Okay, so we're going to move on next, but before that, I want to get one note in here. For those of you that might have questions coming up, please hang in there. I want to make sure everybody that is going to speak has an opportunity to speak, and we will try to take a quick break for questions between the speaker series and our wild game cooking demo. So just hang in there. Again, you can put those in the chat if you like, but we will definitely try to get to them.
Hey, Michael.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering if we should pause for questions, since I don't know if Ed's going to hang on the whole time. Maybe right now for Ed. Since
sure, we can take that time now if you like.
Advocacy, and we got an expert right here, right now.
Solid point.
I'll do my best to hang on, because I have my computer and then I have my iPad that's on, so it's I could have it in the background if that's necessary too. I think I'll probably although I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock for sure.
All right, well, Scott, this is coming out of your time.
Okay, that's fine.
Anybody have any questions? Please speak up now, and don't forget to take yourself off mute.
I have a quick question for you, Ed. What was the date of that virtual legislative day?
It's March 23rd.
Okay.
I think it's a Tuesday. It's March 23rd.
Great. And how do we sign up for that, or how do people get involved in that?
I honestly would tell you, I don't know yet. We're working out the technical, challenges. Okay. Right now we're reaching out to members to get those cameos ready and scripting and all that stuff. And then we're still working on how we, for my request was that, members and staff are great, but how can we involve other people? Because they didn't have an answer for that yet. So we're working on that challenge, but I think we can, between now and March 23rd, I think we can overcome it. That's more than a month for us to figure out how we can, create a link that allows everyone to jump on without overwhelming it, that type of thing. I think that's one of the issues, that you overwhelm it, the whole system kind of falls apart. So we want to make sure there's safeguards in place to make sure it streams effectively.
Hey, Ed, I got a question for you. This is Justin, BHJ.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, what's your feel on concurrent resolutions and how they apply to, whatever house they're brought up in, or I'm sorry, whatever chamber they're brought up in, and whatever committee they may relate to? Are they kind of just a feel-good thing, or do they have some weight behind them as for any bills that are related to their language?
Well, two comments on that, and two positions on that. One was, like, for me, it's always good to remind, because many times we go through this every year, and it's amazing that members forget, because we remind everyone. We started by saying, we receive no state general funds, and they tend to forget that, and they tend to forget issues also. So it's a reminder for. I look at this as a vehicle to remind members the importance and value of this, because it does take some effort to do this, to find a sponsor, to move it forward, and it's good for them to have that. And then also it's a talking point as you engage at the legislature. It's very good at that. So I like that effectiveness. But yes, it really didn't have much of an effect in regarding policy. I mean, you can argue on that. I mean, I think it does to prep for it and be prepared for something else. If you're doing this, you kind of throw these things out, and then you move on maybe some specific legislative change. So it really helps you kind of prep things. On the other side is the legal perspective, which is that, I think the courts, if you move into a certain issue, I mean, you can use that, saying that the legislature acknowledges this. So it's actually a check on if you're trying to defend on a certain issue legally. So that's my perspective.
Okay, that's awesome to hear. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move this along because we are getting a little bit behind. We just had Colin Shepard show up of Ducks Unlimited, Scottsdale Ducks Unlimited chapter. I'm going to give him his 5 minutes to tell us about what they do. Colin, you ready?
Yeah, Michael, hopefully you guys can all hear me. And I apologize for the tardiness. I just finished up with a couple client meetings of my own. So with that being said, I am the area chairman for Ducks Unlimited for the Scottsdale chapter. At heart, we are a hunter-based conservation group that aims at restoring and improving wetlands and ultimately putting more ducks, geese, and other waterfowl species back on the landscape. We got started back in 1937, kind of in the Dust Bowl area, when wildlife really started disappearing, or waterfowl started disappearing off the landscape, in a combination between the expansion, rural development, along with a lot of the market hunting as well too. And it was a group of sportsmen that joined together to really make sure that ducks will continue to be on the landscape for continuing generations. In Arizona, ducks are not the first thing that most people think about from a conservation standpoint. So we are quite frankly kind of battling an uphill battle, if you will. But the one thing that we have in common with, I would argue, every single group here is that water is ultimately a life source for all animals on the landscape. And if we can provide more water on the landscape, higher quality water, provide more access for those animals to get to water, everybody continues to win. So that's a little bit about what DU does from a national standpoint. Here locally, we fundraise as much and we provide as much advocacy and exposure as possible to local. And then ultimately, a lot of the dollars that we fundraise goes back to our head DU group. And from a biological standpoint and a scientific standpoint, gets decided on the different projects across the country that we fund our money into. Here locally in Arizona, we have about 16 projects that DU has partnered with and provided money for. They range from everything up at Marshall Lake, up by the Flagstaff area, down to Cibola National Wildlife Refuge on the Colorado River itself. There's Havasu National Wildlife Refuge, down in the southeast part of the state at Whitewater Draw recreation area down there as well too. So obviously we have a pretty important footpath throughout all of Arizona. Other than that, Ducks Unlimited, we have a pretty big expanse, but we are always continuing to grow, especially here in Arizona. We have a lot of transplants, people who previously had grown up in the DU environment, whether they're from Iowa, California, New York, who found themselves transplanted to the desert, just like a lot of the ducks do at the end of the year as well too. And so that's really a good base of us volunteers, but ultimately we're slowly starting to have a little bit more outreach and a little bit more volunteer support from local Arizonans as well too, or I guess I should say native Arizonans, if you will. So I think that's about all my 5 minutes. And if anybody has any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them offline as well too.
All right. Thank you very much, Colin. Appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking time out of your work day to meet with us. So, all right. With that, next up, we're going to talk a little bit about climate. Now, I realize that not everybody agrees on the source of our climate issues, but I think we can all agree on the impacts of climate issues here in Arizona because we're all feeling it. We have Aaron Kindle from the National Wildlife Federation who's going to talk to us a bit about that. Aaron?
Thanks, Michael, and thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate Ducks Unlimited too. We work with ducks sometime across the country. So thanks, Colin. I'm gonna try to share my screen, Michael, if that works. Let me see here. Give me a chance here. And then pop this into can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep, we got it.
Are you seeing a page or like I can't tell what's actually being seen. So does it look like a presentation?
Your PowerPoint. We're seeing exactly what's on your screen, your PowerPoint, including the slides off to the left.
Okay, so I think
now you're in presentation mode.
Okay, so you're seeing the presentation or the actual, I'm not sure.
We're seeing the presentation. It looks good.
Okay, just a single page, not stuff. Okay, good. So I jumped ahead a page, but basically you know, climate change is impactful one way or the other. You know, Arizona is one of the hottest, driest places in the country already. So obviously, if you get any hotter and drier, there's going to be some impacts. And I just want to talk about this a little and kind of point to why I think hunters and anglers should care about this particularly. I should say, my name's Aaron Kendall. I'm the Director of Sporting Advocacy for the National Wildlife Federation. We call our program NWF Outdoors. I lead that program. We work with all of our hook and bullet affiliates, which is about more than half of our affiliates in the Federation, including Arizona Wildlife Federation. So I'm honored to be here. I appreciate it. I helped Scott and Brad Powell and others get Camo at the Capitol off the ground. So I'm glad to see it still moving along here. Thanks for the opportunity. It's going to jump to this first slide. Like I said, you know, the Southwest has seen the greatest temperature rise of anywhere in the US over the last 40 years, more than 2 degrees. And you can see over the last 100 plus years, in parts of Arizona, you're looking at 3 and even 4 degree change. And, you know, you guys know as good as anyone, right? Last summer was a real warm one. Phoenix broke the all-time record with 34 days above 110 degrees. Seeing some huge temperature, you know, increases. The other big thing, and probably more important than anything for all of us, is the lack of precipitation lately and the decrease in snowpack. I put a little graph here on the side. It's up to 80% loss of snowpack in some places and a lot in Arizona. You know, just those few degrees warmer are going to mean snow melts faster. The snow doesn't persist, and you know that means less water in the rivers and so on. And then wildfires are a result of that. You know, over the last couple decades, we've seen a 2% of Arizona's landscape burn every decade, and those fires are tending to be hotter and bigger lately, and we're seeing some more conversion from grasslands to desert, which, you know, obviously that has impacts. And so I'll just jump over here and talk a little bit about some of those. You know, more heat and less precipitation really just means hard times for fish and game, and you know that has impacts on what that means for our sporting lives. And in a nutshell, all these factors really just stress wildlife and their habitat and reduce hunting and fishing opportunities. And so some of the ways this occurs are listed here, right? Less water availability while the temperatures are hotter. That means less growth on plants and less quality of forage. And that means lower quality nutrition, which affects things like birth rates and survival of young, antler growth, winter survival, you know, all things we care about as sportsmen and women. The drought and heat also means, you know, more and more fires like we talked about, which makes all of this stuff just a little more difficult and brings things like invasive species, cheatgrass. I think a lot of you are probably aware of the cheatgrass invasion across the West and certainly includes Arizona. You know, drought and heat also means lower flows and warmer water temperatures in streams and lower reservoir levels. And that generally means, you know, less fishing opportunity and just less good fishing opportunity too. If those fish are stressed later in the summer and you see water species, for instance, go above 68, 70 degrees, you know, a lot of places across the West, they're enacting hoot owl restrictions, which means you can't fish there. Some places are starting to do that permanently. I'm sure you're seeing some of those impacts in Arizona. And of course, you know, the warmer temps mean longer and warmer seasons, which that means pests, you know, bark beetles, the things you see here, parasites, bacteria, all those are aided by warmer temperatures and longer warm seasons. And those things affect game species. So, you know, and last, when it's hotter, people need more water, obviously. And when that happens, there's a little less water for wildlife. And so that obviously has an impact. And so, you know, really, we know it's a threat. And I think the big question is, how are we as hunters and anglers gonna do our part? And I really believe that we're the most critical voice out there. We spend days and days on end out in the field. We see these landscapes change over time. We're there trying to be quiet and stealthy and early in the morning. And so we see the way the animals are behaving. And so I really feel like it's up to us as much as anyone to kind of help steer these conversations and move towards solutions. So, there's several things we can do right now where hunters and anglers can engage. And, you know, if you don't know already, which you probably do, but we have a new Congress and a new admin, presidential admin, and they're discussing a bunch of new national scale efforts to do things like rebuild infrastructure, restore degraded landscapes and waterways, you know, and create jobs doing this. And a lot of it is aimed at building resilience and mitigating the impacts of climate change. You know, so for the average hunter and angler, you know, first and foremost, I think we need to start talking about this, bring up these issues, point to the solutions in your local rod and gun clubs, you know, your fishing groups. You know, as we all know, conversations in our communities are often the best way to learn and eventually engage. So that's a critical piece. Just have the conversations, flesh out what the issues are to you, what, you know, what you're seeing out there and what else folks are hearing, and just have that conversation for yourself. Another way is engaging in efforts to restore forests. I think probably most of you know that Arizona has lost a lot of forests, particularly to wildfire, other things like disease and development. And so we can really be promoting the replanting and restoration of these forests. You know, your forest restoration initiative there is a great example. A collaboration where folks are getting together, helping the forest, improving habitat. You know, those are the kind of things we really want to see. And, you know, there's lots of benefits to this. There's better habitat, you know, snow stays on the ground longer, there's better forage, you know, we're sequestering some of the carbon, it's cooler temperatures, just really good stuff that'll help us, you know, tackle the climate change issue. Another key way is supporting the Conservation Reserve Program in the Farm Bill. That program pays farmers and ranchers in 10 to 15-year terms not to develop the most sensitive habitat on their land. You know, and so these places like wetlands and forests and other things that aren't developed and that are conserved through that program do things like improve water quality, help habitat, you know, and these help with climate issues by leaving trees on the landscape, saving water, decreasing erosion, and those things create resilience so that when the impacts do come along, like warmer temperatures and flooding and things like that, the landscape is better set up to handle that and not be so devastating when things happen. So that's something, you know, you and your organizations can definitely promote. It needs more funding and enrollment, and those things are good to advocate for. There's a new concept, the Civilian Climate Conservation Corps. Some of you may remember, or at least have read about the Civilian Conservation Corps. It was implemented back in the 1930s. It's responsible for a lot of the work you see on public lands, national park, et cetera, building infrastructure, bridges, helping those landscapes stay healthy. The idea is to do something similar and put people to work doing climate-wise conservation, and hopefully, you know, doing things like restoring burned areas, planting trees, rebuilding, you know, infrastructure that helps us deal with floods and other issues, you know, that threaten waterways. So I think it's a great idea, and there's a lot of people out of work right now. So I think that could be something we should all get behind. Another one is this 30-30 process. You all have probably heard of the 30 by 30. It's an effort to conserve 30% of the lands and waters by 2030. It's been promoted by the new administration. We're engaged with the group called Hunt Fish 30-30, and that's a coalition of sportsmen and women's groups that are looking to determine, you know, what are our priorities? We know this thing's going to happen, and so what do you want to see out of this? So I would encourage you to take a look at huntfish3030.com. And then lastly, you know, ask your state to begin thinking of these impacts and addressing them and building in resilience. You know, legislators, your governor, promoting natural solutions. We call them natural solutions. Those are the things that, you know, where we're restoring the landscape, we're bolstering the landscape's natural ability to handle the impacts. You know, there's a lot of conversion of habitat to development and roads and other things, and that you know is impacts the ability of the landscape to deal with those impacts. So when we restore the landscape and we help augment the natural processes, that's really going to help, you know, mitigate any impacts we're seeing. And so really, you know, the gist of all this is tell your stories, you know, get engaged, promote solutions that work for hunters and anglers, right? And I'll tell you, we started a new audio series called Vanishing Seasons. There's lots of different stories around the country right now about how climate change is impacting hunting and fishing. And these stories are interesting and they need told, and they're really near and dear to all of us. And we're the most credible voice. And so if you get a chance, check that out. I'm going to stop there, Mike and others. This is my contact info. I've put some other links there to some of our work and the Vanishing Seasons page. The Vanishing Seasons has a couple other reports. That page has a couple other reports about how climate change is impacting big game and others. We also have a podcast, the NWF Outdoors podcast, where we touch on this and other issues important to sportsmen and women across the country. So I think that's all I have today, Mike. I would take questions if you wanted me to. I hope that didn't shoot that off the screen. I don't know what you guys are seeing compared to what I'm seeing. I was going to leave that up there for a minute.
All right. All right, Aaron, seriously, thank you so much for your time and your expertise on this. It is very much appreciated. And yeah, we can try to take 1 or 2 questions at most. If anybody has them, please feel free to speak up.
Hey, Michael, it's Ed Sanchez. I'm working as I'm watching this real quick, and I think Scott may talk about this a little bit. There's legislation on the House 2440, and then on the Senate bill, the companion bill. So Senate Bill 1442, hazardous vegetation removal, the state forester. So it provides more flexibility, more ability that the state forester hasn't had to really have on-ground management ability. So he'll have money and he'll have more flexibility to actually work on lands that have trees on it. You know, the whole effort about the forefly and all that stuff. So something to talk about later on.
Thank you, Ed.
Hey, Michael, are we going to make the presentations available to everybody on the distribution list so they can go back and get Aaron's contact info if they don't get it here from the chat?
We certainly can.
Great.
And again, just a reminder, Nikki is plugging all of these websites into the chat, so it's an easy place to go copy and paste from there if you like. Okay, last call for questions for Aaron. And if not, we're going to move on to our own executive director, Scott Garland. Scott, you want to take it over?
Sure. Let me make sure I can. Yeah, it's just going to stop sharing from Aaron's.
Did it go off, Scott? I'm sorry. I can't tell what you all are seeing.
Well, now I'm in the same blind spot that you guys were. So somebody tell me whether you can see this.
All right, Scott, we can see your whole screen at this point.
Okay. And now you should just get the presentation view.
You got it. Well done.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to talk about 3 things basically. You know, first, why sportsmen's advocacy is important to us. Second, I will go through a quick look at some of the federal and state legislative issues and things that we're tracking. And then third, you know, how can you help and how can you help your members help and lend their voice to some of these issues? So, you know, one thing I would say right off the bat is this is intended to be the start of the conversation. You know, these things go on, and as Ed can attest to, some of them come back year in and year out. There's no way we can cover it all. So this is meant to be just kind of something to get people started. So first, you know, why sportsmen's advocacy is important. I think Aaron has said this very well, but, you know, most of us are way more comfortable in the woods or at our hunting camp, or we're more comfortable reading about gear than reading about legislation or reading an outdoor magazine than we are, you know, with getting out of the woods and going to the state legislature or testifying on things. But, you know, the fact is that advocacy impacts policy, and that policy impacts our ability to go out and enjoy the things that we like to do. So ultimately, the reason why our advocacy is important is because it's a foundation to our hunting and fishing future. And most of these things it's not like somebody's going to come out and outlaw hunting tomorrow, you know, but there's nibbling around the edges, and we got to be watching for that stuff. It's not like somebody's going to go and develop all of our national forest land and sell it off to the highest bidder tomorrow. But again, there's nibbling around the edges. So, you know, we have to pay attention to that stuff. And I fully recognize and appreciate the groups that don't get into a lot of advocacy. As the Arizona Wildlife Federation, we do a fair amount of advocacy, and we think it's an important thing to do. So we want to help you to do that in the cases where you feel comfortable. You know, the other thing is, I feel like in Arizona, we are so fortunate to have all this public land, and a lot of us came from other places. I came from Minnesota, and we were fortunate enough to have a family farm, so you could go pheasant hunting. But if you didn't have somebody that had access to that kind of private land, it was tough to find a place to go hunting. And others have similar stories. So the point here is, with this privilege that we've got of all this public land and the fortunate opportunities we've got to hunt and fish in a lot of different places in Arizona, that comes with some responsibilities. We are truly the public landowners, as you'll hear from backcountry hunters and anglers all the time. But as the public landowners, we've got a responsibility to speak up and protect those lands and protect our sporting heritage. And then finally, this is very similar to what Aaron was saying. We're the ones who are out there. We know and we can tell the story, the firsthand story. The legislators who are voting to fund something, to protect something, to prohibit something, in many cases, they haven't been there, or they've got one person chirping in their ear, but we have. And so, your stories matter. And stories, when you're talking to legislators about hunting, when you were growing up, or hunting with a grandson, or what changes you've seen on the landscape, really do have an impact on how they're going to vote on some of these things. So, we have this voice collectively. The voice is a lot stronger. We have the credibility, and it's important to our future. That's the bottom line for why advocacy is important to us. A couple selected issues. And first, I guess I'll say, I think Ed was mentioning, we've got two at the federal level. I guess I'm going to split this into federal and state. I won't cover the bills that Ed covered at all, but at the federal level in Arizona now, we've got we've got a Senator Kelly, who's on the House Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which is a really influential committee for a lot of things we care about. And of course, we've got Congressman Grijalva on the House Natural Resources Committee, where he's the chair. So in terms of the state influence that we've got at a federal level, I don't know, Glenn or somebody else, I'm sure there might be a time in the past when Goldwater was around or somebody else where we had this much influence, but we've got a lot of influence at the federal level right now. The thing is, as sportsmen and sportswomen and people who care about the outdoors and outdoor recreation, we got to be talking to these folks and building relationships with some of these folks. And that's why we're here. So I outlined 3 issues here just to put on your radar at the federal level. The first one is Recovering America's Wildlife Act. Some of you have probably heard about this. This is the act that gives the states funding so that they can try to manage species and try to keep them off the T&E list. So as you can imagine, it's a heck of a lot cheaper to manage a species before it goes on the T&E list than to manage a species once it goes on the T&E list. And so this makes a lot of good sense to us. It also takes some of the burden off of sportsmen. We pay for an awful lot of the conservation through Dingle Johnson, Pittman Robertson dollars and so on. And this particular bill would put somewhere in the neighborhood of $32 million a year into the coffers of the Arizona Game and Fish Department. And so that's a great thing for everybody. It doesn't matter whether, we were talking a little bit earlier about frogs. It doesn't matter whether you're the frog or whether you're the guy who wants his money going to consumptive species. This is good legislation. So it'll be reintroduced this legislative session. We expect it to be probably in a month or so. We'll keep you guys posted, but it's good legislation at the federal level that we're looking forward to. Second one there is permanent protection for the Grand Canyon. This has been around for a long time. I think it's going to probably make progress this next legislative session. We're not, we AWF anyway, and I think most of the groups here, we're not anti-mining. We're not anti-uranium mining, but when it comes to this specific place and uranium mining in the watershed right there around the Grand Canyon, given that there's other places to get uranium, we just think that not doing it in that particular area makes a lot of sense. And if you think about the economic impact, whether it's, deer hunting on the Kaibab or whether it's tourists to the Grand Canyon, you can imagine if there was any kind of an accident or anything like that, it would be pretty catastrophic to Arizona. And then the last one, Aaron mentioned it, 30 by 30 is something that, this is coming. The Biden administration has already talked about it. We know that it's going to be kind of a big deal going forward, we want to be part of the definition. The devil is in the details here. When you're talking about let's protect, if you use the word protect 30% of our lands and waters, that could get kind of scary. If you talk about let's conserve or let's restore and let's make sure that we still have the ability, we have access and the ability to hunt and fish, then all of a sudden it becomes something that makes a lot of sense for sportsmen. So we want to be part of that conversation and part of the definition of what 30 by 30 means and how we can do it right in Arizona. On the state level, again, I won't go over some of the things that Ed mentioned, and there's a long list that we've got here that Nate Reese has put together that's on the next page or maybe the page after in terms of references. But there's a lot of different legislation at the state level that we're tracking. Public lands, there's a bill called House Bill 2702 that basically wouldn't allow any sales of private land to the US government. So take for an example, what was done out in Safford a couple of years ago, where the ET Ranch was purchased by the BLM with the help of the Wild Turkey guys, with the help of Southeastern Sportsmen's Club. And it provided access to over 26,000 acres in the Santa Teresa's for hunting and fishing. That was otherwise, I won't say it was entirely locked out, but it was closed out to any easy access. So they purchased a 600-acre ranch. They improved the roads. They put in a parking lot, put up some signs. Now it's accessible, which is great for everybody. The tax burden, you know, the argument against this kind of thing is that you don't collect taxes on it if it goes to the US government. Well, they were collecting less than $100 a year on that particular ranch in real estate taxes before it was purchased. So you think about what benefits it provided to that area and to hunters and to anybody who wants to go hiking back there. It's certainly worth a lot more than, you know, $100 a year. So that particular bill is a bill that we're not too excited about. And we also think it's got some private property rights challenges. You know, how can you limit somebody from selling their private property to whoever a reasonable buyer is if you've got a willing buyer and seller? The rest of the bills that are listed here are all pretty good bills. Forest thinning, there's tax credits for doing some thinning on smaller diameter trees, which makes a lot of sense. There's a water bill, for example, that allows water rights holders to keep water in the stream, which is good, of course, for wildlife. If you don't have a bill like this, they risk losing their water rights if they don't use their water rights. So this is kind of, if you don't use it, you won't lose the right. So don't use it, don't lose it. But that's another good bill. There's some funding bills, one that's been going around for a while. In 1990, I think it was, the voters of Arizona put $10 million a year into the Heritage Fund for state parks and $10 million a year into the Heritage Fund for Arizona Game and Fish. In 2012, I think it was, the state legislature stripped that out for the state parks. They left it intact, partly because voices like ours were trying to protect it for Arizona Game and Fish. So we're trying to get it back for state parks. That seems to make sense to us as well. And then there's a couple resolutions. There was a question I think Justin had to Ed about resolutions, but there's one in particular about the importance of outdoor recreation to our state economically and so on. And resolutions, for those that don't know, they don't have a lot of teeth in them. It's kind of like just a statement that the state legislature is saying. But, you know, it makes a difference. It's saying that outdoor recreation, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, all of it is important to the state. And so it's recognizing that, which we think is good. I think that's it probably on this page. So how to become a sportsman's advocate. This is a page on, you know, all right, great. So I might be interested in one of these things, but what can I really do? And there's kind of three basic steps to this. The first one is that I say tune in, second one sign on, and the third one speak out. So the tune in part is pretty simple. It's pay attention to the issues. You know, some of your newsletters show them. Trout Unlimited and Tom Osterday is on the line here. They have a policy committee that reviews some of this stuff. They publish it. Arizona Wildlife Federation, we publish some of it in our e-news. We put some of it on our website. So we try to keep people informed. And so the first thing is, just start to pay attention to the issues. Again, it's not as exciting as being out in the field, certainly, but it's something that we all have somewhat of a responsibility to do. And so if you're willing to do it, that's the kind of step one. The second step is, you can sign on to things. In many cases, BHA's routes letters pretty regularly about issues and says, hey, sign on. Arizona Wildlife Federation, National Wildlife Federation, we do it. Trout Unlimited does it. So there's a number of groups that do it. Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Program, they do it, and they do a really good job of it. Find whose letters you like, and don't be afraid to sign on. And this is not like one person, one vote. This is like old Chicago: vote early and vote often. So, these legislators, they do look at these letters and they see how many people are signing on and weighing in on a particular issue. So, it's a pretty easy way. You don't have to put yourself too far out there. If you know about an issue and you feel like it's something you want to support, I'd encourage you to sign on. Specifically with the Arizona State Legislature, if you go to azleg.gov, there's a request to speak sign on, and you have to register. And there's also a resource on the next page that gives you a guide as to how to register, or you can send us a note. We'll get you set up with an account so that you can weigh in specifically on that legislation. So what that means is that once these bills come up to committee, like any of the bills that Ed mentioned, or any of the ones that I listed on the previous page, or even other things, if your spouse is a teacher or a hospital worker and there's legislation you want to weigh in there, you simply go in and you click that you're for, or you support, you're for, or you're against a specific piece of legislation. You can put in comments if you want. It sounds intimidating because it's a request to speak, and you certainly can request to speak at these council meetings or these committee meetings, but you don't have to do that. You can just click a button and say, hey, I support this particular thing. So again, we can help you get signed up for that. It's something that's pretty effective. I'll show you a link to some more information on it on the next page, and we'd be happy to help you do that. It's something that we've used pretty effectively, and I can tell you that when they're looking at this and they see, 30 or 40 or 50 people signed in for something and 1 or 2 that are signed in against it, that makes a difference to them. And then kind of the next step up the ladder here is to actually speak, or use your own voice. Write a letter to your representative, could be federal representative, could be state representative. Offer your voice for a letter to the editor. We do a lot of that, particularly on the bigger issues that are going to be around for a while. Or join us in a visit with a representative. Nate Reese, myself, Michael Cravens, there's a number of other people here that have done the same thing. We're meeting with the state legislators fairly regularly, and we'd love to have you join us. And again, it's kind of about the story that you want to tell. None of this is all that difficult when it comes to things like letter to the editor. We can often write a draft for you and then put your own personal spin on it. So, none of it's too hard, but all of it requires some effort. So the bottom line here is I'd encourage you to get involved. We can certainly help you. And this next page tells you a little bit about places you can get help. The first one there is a conservation advocacy handbook. Aaron put together the draft, Aaron Kindle, who spoke earlier. We then customized it to Arizona. Glenn Dickens did a lot of it on the state legislature and how things work at the governor's office, since that's where he spent his career. But it's a really good book. It talks about how the Arizona legislature is set up, about this, how the state land trust is set up. It talks about how you can advocate. It's a great resource. Oops. Did I just stop sharing? Am I still sharing, Michael?
You're back up now. Your whole screen.
Okay.
It was just the end of the slideshow, Scott.
Okay. I think I clicked to admit somebody into the room and it ended the slideshow. Sorry about that. At any rate, that advocacy handbook is available for anyone. It's something if we were meeting face to face, we'd have a stack of them on the table and you could take it with you. There's a lot of good information in there. The second item there is the bill tracker that I mentioned that Nate Reese has put together. This is specific to state legislation this year, so it lists a lot of the different bills. I'd have to go back in there and see if the bill that Ed mentioned about clearing invasive species is on there. If it's not, we'll have to quickly add that one. But things are pretty fluid down at the state legislature, and Nate's done a great job kind of outlining, here's the bills. And, you know, if I guess the for or against, Nate, is primarily a TU perspective, so you can come up with your own for or against and what he thinks about the bill. And we'd be happy to talk to you about any of those. I mentioned the request to speak program. So that next link is how to get signed on and how to use that request to speak program. And again, you do to get an account, you have to come down to the Capitol the first time, only the first time, to get an account. And so if that's something that, you know, you haven't done and you're too far away or you're not comfortable going down to the Capitol, send one of us an email and we will get you signed on for the first time. We'll set you up with kind of a temporary password and we'll send it back to you, and then you can change your password and log on and, you know, weigh in on whatever issues you want to. So I've listed a few of the emails there. Michael Cravens, of course, who's been sponsoring or has been hosting this, Nate Reese, myself, and Justin Nelson at BHA. Justin, sorry, I don't think I got your approval to put your email name on there, but I know you're willing.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think that's about it, Michael, but I think you want to go to a Q&A session now.
All right, Scott, thank you. Appreciate the update. We are significantly behind schedule, but that's okay. And I hope it's okay with everybody else. It certainly is with me. I'm going to unshare your screen, Scott. And as far as these links go, anything that we failed to get in the chat, we'll get it on email with all this information in it to everyone that's here today. We can have a quick Q&A. We can take a couple questions. So if anybody has got a question queued up, please, now is your moment.
Hello, it's Ed Sanchez. I'm back. Hey, Michael, just really quick, I just want to, again, talk about Senator Wendy Rogers' bill 1360 that has impacts directly the commission by reducing fees, and also creating another method to distribute tags to veterans. So I want everyone to be aware of that and be prepared to activate oneself on this issue, because again, we're in the middle of waiting for a fiscal note to come in so we can have another conversation with Senator Rogers, the sponsor. And so, we're waiting until after that meeting to see what the result of that is going to be. But either way, we're going to be activating our next steps going forward fairly quickly, because as many of you know, this process goes very quickly, very fast. And so if there's a need to advocate, we need to advocate as soon as today, that type of, and not everyone can, it's all about timing. We're working with the sponsor right now, and then we'll determine what our advocacy is going to be after that, sometime mid next week. But groups and individuals like yourselves can start looking at it and determine if you want to start, advocating, like I said, as soon as today, on impressing upon members the importance of, I would call it a simplification process, allowing the commission to make these type of decisions, because there's always a check and balance point on this. With the legislature can always go back and make their changes if they don't like what we're doing. But so far they've been very supportive. So that was my little comment.
Hey Ed, if I could just chime in there. So a little bit more history, and Ed's being very kind when he's talking about this. We want science to rule the day when it comes to decisions about wildlife management. And we don't really want legislators to get into the middle of it, because typically they're not the most educated on it. They're going to be basing it on emotion or on what they might have heard. So we firmly believe that the right group to be making decisions on wildlife management is the Arizona Game and Fish Department and the Commission. And so the Arizona Wildlife Federation in particular, we were founded in 1923. And the specific reason was to keep that kind of politics away from the state legislature. And so we were formed to essentially create or help create the commission, which is a bunch of smart biologists and smart people that are figuring out policy for Arizona. And so this is one, it's like you look at it and standing on its own, tags for veterans doesn't sound like such a bad idea. So it's that nibbling away, but it creates a terrible precedent whereby the state legislature is going to think that they should be the ones making the rules about wildlife and wildlife management instead of the commission in the Arizona Game and Fish Department. So we're certainly standing ready to speak up on behalf of the department on that one. And I would encourage everyone else to do the same.
Excuse me, what bill number was that?
1360. Senate Bill 1360.
1360. Thank you.
All right, last call for questions.
Michael, if there's no other questions, the other thing that I wanted to say, and I guess I didn't get a chance to introduce AWF, but we can do that some other time, it is simply that, as we listen to the affiliates at the beginning of this thing, go through the dozen or so folks that talked, it just, man, it makes me so proud of all the great stuff that's happening, all the volunteer work, all the water that's being hauled, the projects, the youth camps. Every time I hear this, and it happens occasionally, but certainly at this event, it just like fills me with pride that this is awesome stuff that we're doing. So thanks for getting us together, and for everybody in your groups that you're doing and all the volunteers, thank you, because it just warms my heart to see all the good work that's being done in our state.
Heck yeah, amen to that. I struggle with being selfish when it comes to hunting and angling. I need to take more new hunters out, but I have a young family and I have limited time, and I want to put that elk in my freezer. But echoing what Scott said, it's humbling and awesome. To realize there's this many people out there, working for wildlife and wildlife habitat. Not only that, it goes regardless of, your selfish implications like mine might be, it goes beyond that. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We all want lands to recreate on. So despite our immediate intentions, we're affecting all of that stuff with the work that we do. And I just think it's fantastic. So, all right, moving on. I mentioned earlier, we are behind schedule, and I apologize for that. But this next part, you're going to want to stick around for, because this is where it gets fun. As you know, in past, this is our third annual Camo with Capital event. Past events have been in person. And part of those events were a wild game tasting and luncheon, so to speak, for legislators and passerbyers. Last year, I made black bear tacos. Glenn had some barbecue javelina, lots of great dishes. So in place of that this year, what we're going to do is Arizona Backcountry Hunters and Anglers has stepped up to do a live wild game cooking demo. Back in my kitchen, we have Harrison Holub, who is the event coordinator for Arizona Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and Colin Chadwick, who is our chapter secretary, forgive me. And, I don't know exactly what they're doing back there, but I can tell you the smells coming out of the kitchen are just wonderful. So I'm going to let them take it away, and I hope you all enjoy. You're up, Colin.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the introduction, and I've got Harrison here. He's kind of my tech guy. He's behind the camera. He can step around and say hi. We'll see how this works out. It's a little bit of an adventure, but I'm sure it'll be fine. What I'm doing today is Hank Shaw's take on General Tso's chicken. It's kind of a spicy, sweet.
We're just going to turn down the volume on the one we've been listening with. Sorry for that.
There we go. That's better. It's kind of a spicy, sweet, usually with a chicken, but any white meat works well. So pheasant, quail, turkey, any really game animal like that, jackrabbit, squirrel, it would all work well with. So today we used 4 quail, and we parted them out, we breasted them, we pulled off the wings and the legs, the whole 9. So after you do that, you put about a pound worth, 4 tablespoons of cornstarch and 1 tablespoon of soy. It ends up being like a tempura batter. So it'll be a little bit thick, and when you start mixing it, it starts getting a little bit worrisome because it's not really much of a paste, but it works out in the long run. So I've done some of this already.
Mike just realized Edward's out here.
Edward's very interested. So that's what it comes out to do, or what it comes out to look like. So along with that, we've got about a 2-inch piece of ginger minced, 3 garlic cloves sliced real thin if you can. And the recipe calls for 6 scallions, but I like scallions. I like to put a little bit on the top for a garnish, kind of that adds a little bit of a green pop. So I did a whole bunch, so it's about 8. Another thing that you're gonna need is what I used is these chili de balls. They're not the traditional Chinese peppers, but these are a lot easier to find, especially in the Southwest. And what it calls for in the recipe that's on Hank Shaw's website, by the way, which is Hunt, Gather, Cook. You can find it yourself there if you're interested. It calls for 8 peppers with the seeds removed, but I find with these specifically, you don't need that much unless you like it really hot. I know I've tried this a few times before I did this, and the first time I did it, my wife wouldn't touch it. It was way too spicy. I liked it, but it had a ton of heat. So I just did 4 of those chopped in half and tried to shake out as many of the seeds as I can. And then you're gonna have a sauce which will finish at the end, which consists of about half a cup of stock, either pheasant, quail, any kind of stock you have, or just regular chicken stock, a tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and this is where you can kind of adjust it and play with it to your personal taste. If you like it a little bit sweeter, you can add some sugar. If you like it a little bit hotter, you can add the peppers. But I find in the couple of times that I've done this now, if you decrease the peppers, you should probably increase the sugar a little bit. And the other way around too, if you want to decrease the sugar, maybe add a little bit of peppers. Otherwise, it ends up being just a little bit off and bland. It doesn't taste quite as good. So the sugar, we've got Chinese black vinegar is what it calls for, but I couldn't find that. So malt vinegar also works. And then 2 tablespoons of tomato paste with 2 tablespoons of water, and then just mix it together with a fork so it's not real thick like the tomato paste. And then 1 teaspoon of cornstarch again, and it goes in there like that. And before you add it, make sure you mix it because that cornstarch does tend to settle on you. You want to make sure it's all mixed up because that's what's going to thicken the sauce at the end once you get everything in together. So let me wash my hand off real quick so I don't get batter all over Harrison's phone while we switch over here to do the actual cooking.
You have to turn the video on that one too.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone can see everything all right and that's not too far away. Luckily, Mike's got these really pretty cutting boards and contrasting tables, you know, very, very Instagram friendly. Now we're going to switch over to the other one.
All right, so
I'm gonna add in there, Scott. Those are the quail. At least 2 of those quail are the 2 that you and I and Nate took on that last hunt we did.
Nice.
Talking about the fact that Scott was there when they hunted. Go ahead.
You guys with me on the stove side?
Yep.
Edward was there too, who made a cameo there a minute ago.
He did. So you get your oil to about 350 degrees. It doesn't have to be perfect. And add all your pieces in. You want to do batches in about 1/3 of what you have in the bowl because you don't want to bring the temperature of the oil down too much. Otherwise, things won't cook real well. So once you get everything in, you kind of want to make sure you have something available. Chopsticks. These are a couple of shish kebab skewers to try to separate all the pieces because those pieces are going to glom together once you get them frying. This is going to be about 2 to 3 minutes until they start looking nice and golden brown.
What kind of pan are you doing that in, Colin?
So what I typically like to use cast iron whenever I can. I have other stuff too, but it just seems like cast iron holds heat better, especially for like frying where you want the temperature steady. Cast iron, and especially a wok for this, just is the best way to go in my opinion. One thing I forgot to mention too when I was dropping those in, as you're taking your quail apart, if you can kind of just take them and feel for that shot in there, it'll be less of a surprise for people when you actually get a bite of it. You can usually get most of it out that way. These things are coming right along.
Set up to the left, Colin.
So these are all the pieces that I already have done. You can do them ahead of time. You don't have to do them all in one batch. And then I just have some jasmine rice that I'll use to finish it. These things are looking like they're just about done. So you just remove those pieces, set them aside, and let them drain. You don't need a fancy basket like this. A slotted spoon works pretty good, but if you're going to be doing much deep frying, especially in a wok like this, it just makes it easier to get stuff out instead of using a smaller spoon and chasing it all over the pan. So now we're going to kill the heat on the oil, and you want to set that aside because you can reuse that. So I did 4 cups of peanut oil in there for the frying. And you can just put that, say, in, I've got a 4-cup Pyrex measuring cup, which is what I used to put it in there. You can put that back into the Pyrex, let it cool, and then use a funnel and a paper towel as kind of like a coffee filter, and you can pour that back in and reuse that oil. So we're gonna move this aside. Grab. It's a little bit warm, and we're gonna wanna leave about 3 tablespoons of oil on the bottom of it for cooking the rest of the ingredients. All right, so now we're back. And get the heat, maybe get the heat going again. Let's see. The lighter again? Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, Mike didn't warn us about his igniter problems on his stove, so.
Or maybe we just got lucky and discovered them ourselves. So the first thing will be the peppers. Those go in there. You're going to cook those pretty well, almost until they turn black. And what that's doing is it's kind of infusing that oil with all the spice and heat from the chilies. So just keep working that around. One thing I really like about kind of this Asian style cooking, which I've discovered lately, is you can do all the prep work ahead of time, and the actual cooking really doesn't take that long. It does take a little bit of time to chop everything, get it all together, all that, but the actual time in front of the stove is not bad at all, which is really nice if you're busy with kids that's at home, that they're going to school and everything else. Sometimes you don't feel like spending all day in front of the stove making something. So now that those are starting to cook up pretty nicely, at least those darker ones are starting to definitely turn that darker color black. It gets pretty quick from here. Throw the ginger in. And each time you put something like this in, you basically just stir it around until you can start smelling that ginger or the onion or the garlic, whatever it is. And then you know it's probably time to add the next one. Roughly a minute, maybe a little bit less per each ingredient. So I can definitely smell the ginger. So now I'm adding the garlic in. The same process, just keep folding it all together in the wok. Now that garlic is starting to smell awesome.
I really wish they had a smell vision on these cameras because it smells great over here.
Like I said, I'm reserving a little bit of those scallions for garnish on the finish.
I guess this is the teaser for being in person at next year's Camo at the Capitol event. Then you can sit there and actually
Now we're getting
smell it
somewhere.
and taste
So
it.
now, really all you need to do is add back in your quail or whatever you're working with. Then you add your sauce back in. Make sure you bring that cornstarch all back up again. Then you just kind of work it and fold it in. And what that cornstarch is going to do is it's going to help make that a thicker sauce. So if you do double batches of this, which I've done, sometimes it doesn't come out quite the same because you want that flash when you put it in there. It's not going to thicken quite correctly unless you do that. It's just going to kind of boil, and that's not what you want. And you just kind of keep working it, keep moving it around, just trying to keep an eye on that consistency of the sauce until it gets to where you think it should be. I think it's getting pretty close, so now I'll kill the heat. Just keep working it for a few more minutes. Oh, not even a few more minutes, probably 30 seconds.
At what point's a good time to start making the rice during this time?
I like to try to do the rice ahead of time because this doesn't take long to cook. So it can sit on the stove and stay warm and be just fine for when you're actually done with the cooking. So that's something I like to do ahead of time. So now, let me grab a bowl.
Colin's just got to do a little bit of dishes. We didn't want to rob Mike's house of too many bowls, so we're kind of working with what we can. We're trying to keep it as clean as possible in case you're listening, Mike. And if there's anything broken, it was broken when we first got here.
Still beer in the
It's all
fridge?
personal preference. Just add however much rice you feel like you want. And after that, you're pretty much done. Some of that in.
Just make sure you start with that can over there. Bring it up nice and close.
Throw some scallions on top, and that is pretty much it. It's a simple dish. Once you kind of get the hang of the techniques, the key for this one really is cornstarch. Every time I've tried to do a Asian dish before this, I've used more traditional breading techniques, and it really hasn't worked out. It's been soggy. It's been, like cheap Chinese takeout. So it was kind of like, not real impressed by it. But using the way that he does the batter, it really helps keep it bright and crisp. It doesn't feel real heavy on the breading, and that makes a world of difference on how you cook Asian food, and specifically these type of fried Asian foods. I've tried a couple of different ones that he's done, and it's all basically that same batter. So that's one I've definitely put in my back pocket.
I'm more than welcome to hit mute on that one. We're going to switch cameras here again.
All right.
Anyone have any questions about the cooking for Colin here?
That was awesome, you guys.
It was.
I'm just curious. You mentioned that you didn't break anything that you're going to tell Michael about. Did you drink his beer out of the fridge?
He actually offered before we got here. So at this point, he's got an empty beer fridge and a full recycling bin. So
well done, you guys.
Well, hey, I'll tell you what, I live in Tempe. I'm not that far away. If anybody wants to come over and eat some of this, you're absolutely welcome to. This is as safe as a household as you're going to get. We've been vaccinated or been through it. This is as good as it gets. If you want to try some quail, come on over.
Well,
All right. Please go ahead.
It looks like something I'd really enjoy. That cornstarch technique, I think, is something that they're using for paleo type of frying for also. So it's and so it's one of the suggestions for not getting too much breading on wings. So if you're doing wings for your Super Bowl dinner, there's a great keto diet for wings.
That sounds good. Those wings on those birds are a little small, so they probably have to go with the traditional chicken in that case, huh? So listen, if anybody else has any questions regarding anything we've talked about here today, please speak up, and go ahead and interrupt me if necessary. If not, I do want to say thank you for hanging in there. It's not easy to shove an all-day event into just a couple hours, so I appreciate your patience. I hope you got something from it. And I sincerely and genuinely thank all of you for the important work that you do.
Michael, can I say something?
Absolutely.
I'm Bill Brake, a commissioner on the Game and Fish Committee. I just have been listening, and I thank you. You invited, at least I think I got invited, but I enjoyed sitting here and listening to it. The one comment that I would like to make is thank guys for all of you people.
Break on this one.
I'm sorry, what? Anyway, the comment that I would like to make is you guys and girls are so important to us. The commission job is I think a tough job, but it would be horrible if we didn't have the support of you all. And the support we get from you is from your heart. And that makes a whole lot of difference as opposed to signing up and not really knowing what you're doing. We in the commission make tough decisions. When I got on the commission, I had a commissioner come up and says, if you think you're going to have more friends after 5 years of this, you are really wrong. But the one thing that commission does, and Scott brought it up, man, we do not want the legislation to take over the running of the Game and Fish Department. And I've had the opportunity in the last 4 years to go around, and I don't even have to tell you what state. You can figure them out yourself. But commissioners that used to have some power and influence have nothing. Everything is done by their legislature. Hunting areas are taken away for reasons that just don't really make any sense to them or us. We have, or we're told we have one of the best situations in the Western United States. And we're only as good as you all. And I just cannot thank you, and I hope you allow me to say this, for the help that you have given us, the support you've given us. Forgive us if we make some bad mistakes. We can fix them. We don't need the legislature making bad mistakes that will never get fixed. We do the best we can because we love wildlife and we want it for our grandkids and their grandkids, and we can't do without you. And I thank you for letting me say that. Thank you.
Bill, an echo here too from the Antelope Foundation and Deer. He's a living example on his landscape, his private property and his ranch. He came early and he's come often to the HPC process. His 100% of his ranch is water secure for basically every species that is there as we go into this drought. When the Antelope Foundation did our 10-year grant project down in southeastern Arizona, which we finished in 2019, we camped dozens and dozens of times as his host at the Rose Tree Corrals. Deeply appreciate that. Commissioner Brake will become chair in July. He'll serve as chair to the commission through June of next year. And then sadly, his term will come to close at the end of next year. But he understands the partnership side of this. And thank you, Bill, very much. And thanks for attending.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'll follow that up, Bill. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the kind words. And I can tell you they are absolutely reciprocated. And having thoughtful folks like you on that commission is it just makes all the difference. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
With that said, folks, if no one else has any further questions, I'm going to go eat some of that quail. And one more time, thank you all so much for the important work you do, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Michael.
All right,
Wonderful
guys.
ritual.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Everybody.
Bye now.
Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.